Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is another video of me not buying even more orchids. That's a big box, so I can't do it on my little table like I normally do, so I'm probably going to get in the way of the camera as I open this, but it's been boxed this way. If the plants went in through the top of the box, it's probably better that they come out through the top of the box. That's my theory, what I have. So let's get at it. What we've got. I don't actually know what's in here. Literally, I don't actually know what's in here. That may sound odd, but like with many things, there's a story. And the story is that the lovely Isabell, who's currently in bed with a cold apparently, so get well soon, made me an offer. There's an orchid nursery, I assume relatively close to where she lives, called Orchids and More. So I'm just going to open this off camera in case there's sensitive information in the envelope, which doesn't need to be broadcast. Yeah, so she said she was going to visit Orchids and More. Now that's one of those I'll read that out in a minute. Well, some of it. Yeah, so continuing story. She was going to visit Orchids and More, and that particular place has a little bit of an iffy reputation. There's been quite a few unboxing videos I've seen over the periods of time, and some plants have come out of the box absolutely superb and some not so good. So it's one that I've always been reluctant to order from online, because I still believe if you run a nursery that's open to the public and you've got five plants of the same variety, yeah, and a couple of them aren't so nice looking, well, which ones are you going to post online and which ones are you going to leave in your nursery for your public to see and pick up and look at? You can get your own answer to that, because I think I know which ones go in the online orders. Yeah, so the offer was to hand pick some orchids. So I sent a list of ones that I fancied in the order I'd like them in, with the proviso that you know, if the first plant I fancied didn't have a decent version that was worth having, then move on to the next one. So as I said, I've got an idea of what they might be, but not specifically. I have a feeling we're going to make a mess here. Not quite sure what that's for. Maybe it's to keep the plants warm in the winter, because it's not going to fit on my head, that's for sure. Thank you. Right, what else have we got in here? I've been told to go careful of the stakes sticking up in the air and not poke my eye out and things like that. There's a bit of loose media floating around, but that just happens, that's life. Right, I think I can get this one out. Ooh, it's quite big. And apparently one of these has got repot me written all over it. Well, you know what I'm like with new plants, they tend to go on the repotting list by default. The amount of time I'm prepared to leave them in their old media is purely dependent on what it looks like in the first place. Okay, that's good. So far so good, as they say. I'm going to try and keep the mess in the box if I can. Not always possible, but that's what dustpan and brushes are for. Stake can come out before I poke myself with it. If this is the one that says repot me, well, I can see why, because that almost looks like it was taken out of a pot and put in a new one. But that's not a bad Cattleya, not a bad Cattleya at all. And what have I just done with the tag? It had a tag on it, but it's on the paper somewhere. I'll dig it out in a minute. But yeah, that's a nice plant. 2 strong new growths, both with sheaths on. Whether they will develop, given the upset of changing countries, being in postage and all such things that don't do the plants the world of good, quite honestly, but that's what happens if you want to change countries. You need Postman Pat. Oh, and actually there's another new growth coming at the base. See, now if I was selecting that plant and there were choices of plants, I'd be looking at the number of the new growths. Are there any signs of brand new ones? Yes. So we've got 2 latest growths, another one coming, and it's difficult to tell on this one. When I repot that, which will be soon, like later today probably, we'll have a look at what's inside the media, where the good roots are, and try and find signs with the Cattleyas types. Some of them produce their new roots, just before the new growths come out. Some of them produce the new roots as the canes are growing, pseudobulbs are growing. Sorry, I've got Dendrobiums on my head now. And some of them don't produce their new roots until the pseudobulbs are completely mature. Yeah? So I got choices here. There's either been some new roots to go with these new growths and they're in there, and they might not be doing too well, but there will be new ones to go with that new growth at some point. So that's one. I'll sort pop-outs out for the names and see if I can scrounge some pictures of the blooms before I post the video. So that's number 1. Where did that tag go? I'll have to have a rummage in a minute. I'll have to tidy this lot up anyway. Right, little one here. Let's see what this one is. Let's try not to lose the tag this time. Ah! Try and keep a mess in the box as well. I always keep my boxes in the spare bedroom. You know, you never know when you're going to need boxes to pack things in and put things in. Right, this is a Bialara. Joe's Drum. I can see why I lost the other tag, because they're on the outside of the pot with the paper, so we'll keep that one while I can see it. Now again, although a little bit crumpled, 2 nice new growths on this one, pushing on nicely. Relatively immature growths. Where's the camera? I don't know what I'm doing here, I'm probably off shot. Relatively new growths, not created their pseudobulb as such yet at the base. So these are to grow on, and providing it doesn't get a culture shock, there's no reason why at least one of them shouldn't bloom. Yep. Nice little plant. What else we got in here? Right, well the first thing is, I did order 3. So Isabell, you need some counting lessons, because there's 4 in here. Oh, hang on, what have we got here? There's the tag, look, it's on the paper. Let me grab it. Oh good, I'm glad that one's included. There goes the media. So they've got to be potted anyway. And it is very difficult in transport to actually keep things in the pot. Oops, get rid of that cane before somebody's eye comes out. Mine. No, not back in there. I'll catch my hand on it. Another Cattleya. You might think, why am I buying so many Cattleyas? Well, the simple reason is I lost so many. You know, with my lack of knowledge about timing the repot, You know, I ended up losing a lot of roots on some, and some never recovered, and then we had the fusarium related problems, you know, which also caused problems. Now that's got a new growth just starting and green root tips all over the pot, so that one will come on nicely. That's probably going to break off eventually, but that's one of the oldest canes. It doesn't matter, it's got plenty of leaves on there to keep the old photosynthesis going. Okay, that one is, where's my tag gone? That is Cattleya, Cyan Yew, Red Pearl, Red Dragonfly. Wonder what colour that is then. You know me, I like the reds and the oranges. So that's 3, so not quite sure why I've got 4. It looks like I've got a bag full of grass here, looking at it on the surface. This is. Looks very much like. So the pots come right out of the bottom of the packaging, and it's incredibly tall. Well, there goes all my space. I'm looking at those canes. That's a Dendrobium of some sort. A big big Dendrobium of some sort. Don't see a tag on this one yet. Be careful. Aha, it's actually in the pot this time. This is Dendrobium Hancockii. So thank you, Mr. Hancock, for naming this one for us. Oh God, I think this might just slide off. There again, it might not. Might be better to tear it off, perhaps. It's only newspaper, it should. Come off okay. My goodness, this is a big plant. Very big plant. I'll say, there goes all my space. Goodness me. What a monster. I think when yeah, it's been carefully sort of bent over. It's obviously a very, loads of new growths. Loads of new growths. Good root system. Looks a bit like the old Hercoglossum. But boy, is that a giant plant. Well, that's gonna... This is going to be fun, because if I put that on a mount, if you look at the size of the plant, that's not the height of the plant, because it's been draped. So it's twice as big as that. So that's a, I'd say 4.5 feet, 5 foot long plant. Oh God, I'm going to have fun with that. But fun I'm prepared to do, you know, I'm a sucker for the Dendrobiums. That's a good set of new growths on there. I'll have to look this one up as to its flowering pattern and winter requirements and stuff like that, and look into it. Now I know you're saying, why didn't you do that before you get it, but basically I was going through the website with all the wrong attitudes. I was going through the website looking at pretty blooms and thought, well, that's a Dendrobium type with a bloom I haven't got, so we'll have a look at that then. I mean, I did do a quick look up to make sure I'm not getting a hot grower or a cold grower or anything like that, because obviously that wouldn't fit in. But I'm not going to know what the hell to do with that, which is a shame, because that's a seed pod. It's been left on the plant. I might look into doing something with that. Not myself, but I might find somebody who might be able to do something with that. But it's a complex process that I can't certainly handle. So there we go. I'll get rid of the rubbish, have a bit of a tidy up, and have a read. Oh, let's have a read of me letter, see how much of this can be read out. As I said, you can't read out personal data. I hope the motley crew has arrived safely and leaves and buds are unscathed. One of them has repot me written all over it, literally. Still look like a good and strong plant. To all orchid geeks present. Since I am one man short here and found a farewell smoke saying I'm out of here, need someone who can accommodate my odontoglossum heritage. I will watch out for. I would watch out for stowaways. So the plant I didn't recognise is a stowaway. It snuck in the box when we weren't looking. That makes a bit more sense. I also made a little something to make sure the jungle juice, aka red stuff, always goes into a nice and shiny glass. It's a glass cleaner. It's me thinking it was a hat for little people. Hopefully you were satisfied with my choices. Don't hesitate to ask if you want some more plants. And bank details and stuff. Nope, we don't need all that public. So there we go. I'll have a bit of a tidy up and then we'll have a closer look at the plants. I'll be back. Okay, that's got rid of the rubbish. And I've still got some rummaging to do. There's some very important information in amongst that packaging somewhere that I've managed to miss. So I'm going to have to go into the garden and go through the whole flipping lot again. Never mind. Right, these three first then. This one is Cattleya, Shinfong, Little Sun, Young Min, Golden Boy. Those of you who've sort of seen some of my plants in the past would know I've got Young Min Orange. So what colour do you think that one might be then? With a name like Golden Boy, it's a good yellow basically, and if it's anything like the Young Min Orange that I've got, it's a multi-floral Cattleya, so not the hugest of blooms, but in theory lots of them. So you get it, you literally get a spike that develops, up to 10 buds basically, and lots of blooms. So it makes like a head of blooms. Both of these sheaths appear to have buds in them. Hopefully they'll develop, but you've got no guarantee with Cattleyas when you start rummaging around with the roots and changing countries, packing them in boxes and stuff like that. The first things that will suffer are buds, quite honestly. But we'll see. I mean, that needs to go in a new home today, literally. So that needs a good wash off, clean all the dirt stuff out from the roots. You can see, what Cattleya roots are like. They're quite chunky. They like to grab hold of things and they like a lot of air around them. Well, in a PT type compost like that, that's not going to happen, is it? It's far too tight a mix for a Cattleya type. It's got some coconut fibre type stuff in there as well, which again doesn't allow for a lot of air. Do you know, I think there might be another new growth coming there. What do you think? There's definitely one there. That looks like one there as well. So, we'll get that one in a pot later on. Get the old sheaths off, you know me. Give it a good clean up and find a holy clay pot for it. Now, I do have a little bit of a problem with the holy clay pots because I haven't got any big ones left. But on a temporary basis, that can quite happily be accommodated in one of the smaller holy clay pots. It's going to climb out eventually, give it a couple of years and it'll be over the edges. But with a clay pot, I'm not that fussed. It's a natural progression for Cattleya types. The base of the plant with an associated root system would be down in the chunky bark inside the pot, and those that climb over the edge will attach to the pot or have some aerial roots. It's a natural progression for how Cattleyas live. They will do well on a mount as well for exactly the same reason. They like air around their roots. So I'll see if I can find a picture to pop up. So that's that one. At least I think I got the tags round the right way. Yeah, I must have. Yes, because that was the tag that was missing, and that was the first one I took out. Yeah, so those two go together. The other Cattleya has a nice new growth on it, and again, not happy with what it's in. It's only held in there by that stake. If that stake wasn't there, it would be out. It would have fallen out a long time ago. But I can see some good roots down in there. So again, holy clay pot for you, and you can become established in there and grow that new growth on. So that one's saying you red pearl, red dragonfly. Sure you got enough red there in the name, Butch? I wonder what colour that one will be then. Who said pink? Right, that's that one. And then the stow-a-way. I can see some good roots coming out of the base of those two new growths. So again, a repot. I may well do all three of these together. But that's a Bialara Joe's drum. I got a feeling somebody had a picture of one of these a while back in a video, and I got a feeling I made a comment like that one's going on the list, or yeah, really good bloom or something like that. But that name rings a bell. Again, I'll try and dig out a picture and do a pop-up like one does. Now I'm going to have to get these three out of the way to have a look at the last one. I've unstrapped it and taken all the ties off to see it in all its glory. It's going to take the whole table up. I'm practically standing in the Vanderbucket to get it all in. I can't get back any farther. It's a monster, and I am well pleased. Yeah, you know I love my Dendrobiums. Now this is an unusual Dendrobium. Yet another new growth habit that I haven't got on any of my others. It has branching stems. Now they're not kikis, that's how it grows. And if you look at this one, you can see. Yeah? So it grows quite sturdy canes that I wonder if that would naturally grow upright and then arch over as a natural way of growing. I'm going to have to see if I can find some pictures of this sort of growing in nature, in the wild, and see. It comes from various heights, so it's quite accommodating as far as temperatures are concerned, because it can grow. It comes from parts of southern China, and it can grow at quite low elevations and also at medium towards high elevations, so it's obviously temperature tolerant, and from what I can find out about it, it does need to be drier in the winter and, you know, get rid of fertilizer and stuff like that. That will probably be because it comes from a deciduous forest type area. I suspect that's a prediction rather than knowledge at this point. It has the most gorgeous, waxy, deep yellow blooms on it. But, and this is an important but, if you can find out when a Dendrobium naturally blooms, it'll help guide you through the winter. This one blooms in spring and early summer. So whatever happens to it in the winter has no bearing at all on whether it blooms or not. That's like Hercoglossum. Yeah? Okay, it might dry off a bit in the winter, might get brighter light if it's deciduous forest, so, you know, and a reduced rainfall, so a sort of winter rest, but it's not that rest that triggers the blooms. That's just where it grows, and is advice on how to not get the roots soggy and rot them in the winter when the temperatures are lower. You see what I mean? There's a difference. There are some Dendrobiums that need that cooling off in the winter, drying off a bit, brighter light, and it triggers the blooms, things like the anosmum types. The blooms are triggered by the change from coming out of winter and what happens to them in the winter, whereas this one, the blooms are not triggered by that mechanism because they come later in the year. I mean, I've even got a nobly type that's a late spring, early summer bloomer. Well, that's what it's hybridized with, has done that to it, changed its normal nobly pattern. But that is a monster. Now I've got to decide how I'm going to grow that, because if I put that on a mount and hang it upside down, it's going to double its size. If you think about it, that's from the bottom of the pot to here, where it starts to arch over. Now that it does naturally. Yeah, it would equally suspend. You know, if I turn it upside down, it would equally grow. But looking at the way this is growing and the way those new growths have pushed up without being tied, I might have to keep this one upright. Boy, is that going to take up some space. But for the blooms on this, I'm quite happy. Yeah. So it has a Hercoglossum look about it. It has some of the traits of Hercoglossum. So in my book, it's probably going to get treated exactly the same as I treat my Hercoglossum, because a lot of these canes are actively growing. Yeah. Now this has come from an orchid nursery in Germany. Whether they imported that as a huge plant or whether they've grown it, I don't know. But nonetheless, wherever it's lived in its recent history has been in a climate similar to mine. These canes are extending, and they're actually branches rather than canes, and it has new canes pushing up, yeah, that are still actively growing. So if it's actively growing, it's going to need feeding and watering until I see such time as it isn't. And I think if this grows like the Hercoglossum, it isn't going to stop. It's going to continue growing through the winter on some of the canes. So like my Hercoglossum, if there are canes still pushing out new leaves, I'm not going to stop feeding it. I'll reduce it down so that it gets less. Quite a bit less, in fact. And it won't get watered anywhere near as often because it won't dry out very quickly. It's winter time. Not yet. Soon. And we've actually got some sunshine today, so I might get some heat in here. Do you know, I didn't get above 20 degrees in here yesterday, and that's not good. I even put off watering the mounts as a consequence. But we're already up to 22 today with the little bit of sun that's come out. If it can last all day, I'll get some heat in here. I'll start splashing water around again. But I am well pleased with that. That is one hell of a plant. And I still need to go back and have a look and see how much I've paid for this lot. That's why I've got to have a rummage and find out the money, the money side of things. Very trusting Isabell, actually sending the plants without any money. Still, where am I going? You know, I'm not exactly going to do a runner, am I? So, yeah, I'll sort that out as soon as. And thanks a bunch for this. It's a nice gesture to actually hand pick some orchids. I can just imagine the look on Isabell's face when perhaps she may have been taken to where these plants were. She may have searched them out herself and actually saw this, and my eyes would have lit up, you know. But yeah, well pleased with that. I'm really not sure what I'm going to do with that seed pod. I don't know. I mean, that's not matured yet. It's still green. I don't know much about producing orchids from seed. All I know is that I'm not going to be able to actually do it myself. But I'm quite happy to leave it on there and see what happens to it. In theory, it will possibly carry on swelling for a bit. I don't know. But it should eventually change colour and start yellowing and heading towards a browny colour, at which point I believe this, you know, it's ripe. The seeds are ready to harvest. But I need somebody who knows something about that sort of thing. Anybody want to volunteer? Anybody who has the conditions to be able to germinate orchid seeds in a flask? You know, on the magic medium that's used, agar or whatever it's called. I haven't got a clue. I've read about it, I've seen it, I've seen it going on, but I don't have the facility, so I'm not going to attempt to muck about with that sort of thing. But I mean, it might even be that the seeds are not very viable. Who knows? If that was actually pollinated in the nursery, the seed in there might not even be pure. The seed in there, this could have hybridized in the nursery with something else that was compatible and in bloom at the same time, and this is a brand new hybrid, never seen before. You never know. Because unless this was specifically pollinated, in the strict terminology, you're not allowed to call it the same as the mother plant. Yeah? You have to class it as a cross. If you don't know where the pollen came from, to cross, you know, to actually pollinate that particular bloom, if you can't guarantee where it came from, then you can't name it the same as the mother plant. Yeah, you'd have to get into DNA testing and everything on the young plants to actually find out if they're pure or not. Otherwise, you just have to call it a cross. All good fun. Do you know, I think I might keep that upright. If I put 1 or 2 sturdy canes in the pot and hold the older canes upright and pull the newer canes in to keep them upright to the point where they start to arch, I could keep it looking like this, like a clump of bamboo. That's what it looks like. But it naturally branches. I've never seen a Dendrobium that naturally grows and branches to that extent. As I say, those aren't kikis, they're naturally branching canes. So, a beauty. And thank you very much, Isabell, and get well soon. Brandy and honey. And while we're on the subject of honey, the blooms on this are strongly fragrant and they smell of honey. And they're a deep yellow and a waxy look to them. So let's hope we get some. I see no reason why not. I mean, if my Hercoglossum blooms, then I'm sure this one will. Just need to find out on what parts of the plant it actually blooms. Looking at where the seed pod is, and there's some older spikes lurking as well. You can see where they were. This blooms incredibly like Hercoglossum. So it looks like it can bloom on, not on the old canes down the cane, but farther up, although there are some signs that it's bloomed down here as well. This is going to be a nice wait and see. This is going to be a good bit of fun next year to see how it grows, see how it blooms, where, how often, how long they last, all that sort of stuff. So, an adventure starting today on day 1. Should be fun. See you again.